Welcome to the webinar. Please put your name, the name of your business, and if you've ever worked with SBA and what you hope to learn from this webinar in the chat box. We will begin in just a few moments as other participants are being added to the webinar. Dr. Gathers, thank you. Hello, Mr. Lee Moutry. Welcome to How to Win the Contract series, part 2, SBA Federal Contracting 101. We will begin in just a few moments. And we have several familiar faces and several familiar companies. You know the drill. Please put your name of your business, and if you've ever worked with SBA in the chat box. And throughout the webinar, we're going to ask you to use the Q&A box to ask any questions. All right, let's see, what time is it? Is it webinar time? I believe it is. Welcome to How to Win the Contract series, part 2 of a four-part series. Today's webinar is SBA Federal Contracting 101, and we're excited to have this webinar being presented today for you. Next slide. So again, I'm Ruth Jordan, your moderator for today's event. I'm the manager of the Women Minority-Owned Businesses here with the City of Charleston. We have our technical support being ran by Brian Garber and Christina Ott, all of Business and Neighborhood Services. And then our great presenter today is William Furman, Senior Area Manager with the SBA South Carolina District Office. Just a few housekeeping. The presentation is being recorded and will be made available. Your video and your audio is turned off. Again, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A box to put your questions in. Hopefully one day we'll be able to meet in person, but currently we have to use the Q&A box. Next slide, please. So again, this is part of a 4-part series. It is all designed to teach you and help you to know how to win the contract. On last Wednesday, we had Why Be Certified. And on tonight, we have September 15th, SBA Federal Contracting 101. And then next Wednesday, same time, same location, understanding the scope and winning the contract and how to bid on contracts. And then finally, September 29th, you got the contract, now what? Contract compliance. And so tonight we are excited to do part 2. Next slide. Tonight we have SBA, the Small Business Administration. Our presenter for tonight is Mr. William Furman. William is the Senior Area Manager for the U.S. Small Business Administration in North Charleston, South Carolina. He graduated with a BS degree from Clemson University and has had over 30-year career experience with the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the U.S. Small Business Administration, where he has been administering business and economic development programs. He serves the 10 coastal counties of South Carolina for SBA, providing lending services, governmental contracting programs, economic development to small businesses, and now SBA COVID-19 relief programs. I presented some and introduced the others. Mr. William Furman, our presenter for tonight. William, it's all yours.
Thank you, Ruth. That was a great introduction. I really want to thank you, Christina, Brian, and all the other staff with the city. The city is a great partner with SBA. We do a lot of things together, and it's just a great relationship, and I really appreciate your support. And you've put together a very nice series here. So, I mean, I think you're taking these businesses step by step on what they need to do contracting. And, you know, that could be contracting with the city. It could be contracting with the federal government. And so, you know, it is a really nice step-by-step process. So for tonight, you know, my goal is to make everybody aware of federal contracting certifications. You know, what does that mean? What does that do for me? All of those kind of things. And then want to make sure that you understand the eligibility requirements for each particular certification, and then how to start the application process. If you feel like it's something that you want to move forward with, then, you know, we want you to know how to go about it, and the resources that are available with that. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And so there we go. We should be there now. Okay. So, you know, SBA does have, we have contracting programs, and that is what we're going to talk about tonight. But I do want to just mention and make sure that you are aware of the other missions of SBA. So just very briefly, I want to mention those. And so one of the missions is that SBA provides counseling to small businesses. And the way we do that is through our resource partners. These are organizations that SBA provides financial support to and oversight to, so that they can work one-on-one with small businesses at no cost. No cost. So you can get this help for your small business. Maybe you need help, you know, pulling together your application to get your certification for government contracting. Well, we have help available. So SBA staff, we're a very small staffed agency, and so we're not set up actually to work with the public one-on-one. That's why we have these resource partners, and they act as our boots on the ground, if you will, to assist small businesses. And here in Charleston, we're very fortunate. We have the Small Business Development Center. We also have SCORE, and we have a new Women's Business Center. And so we have 3 different organizations that can help small businesses. Again, they can work one-on-one with you with whatever the matter may be, and help you with that. So I just want you to make sure that you're aware of that. If you need contact information for those organizations, I don't have a slide with that. Probably maybe should have done that, but we only have an hour, and so we were trying to get through this. But I do want to, if you want to see that contact information, the best place to go is our website, and that is www.sba.gov/SC. And that will take you to South Carolina's SBA webpage. In addition to having the contact information for our resource partners, our calendar of events is there as well. This event is on our calendar. If you go and check it out, future events are on there as well. Our resource partners post their events there. So just a lot of information and very beneficial for you. So be sure to do that. So in addition to counseling, we do capital access programs. These would be the SBA loan programs or the SBA lending programs. Now, SBA doesn't actually make loans directly, but we provide loan guarantees to lenders so that entices them to make loans to small businesses, because it reduces the risk. It gives that bank additional backing for the loan, and again, encourages them to make loans to small business. The third thing that we do is disaster assistance. So a lot of people never knew about SBA until the pandemic and all the COVID programs were rolled out. And so a lot of people, you know, they found out about SBA through COVID programs, but SBA has been doing disaster assistance for a long, long time. And typically, you know, here in Charleston, for the most part, our disasters consist of hurricanes, although it could be a flood, it could be a fire, it could be anything. But as long as it's a federally declared disaster, SBA will be there and we will be providing assistance in the form of low interest long-term loans for uncompensated losses. And those losses can be, and this surprises a lot of people, these losses can be homeowners, it could be renters, of course, small businesses and nonprofits. And it can be an economic injury, as COVID has been, or it could actually be a physical disaster like a hurricane would be. And so SBA has low interest long-term loans for all of those programs. But we're here tonight to talk about government contracting. And so let's get started on that. So we're going to talk about small business federal government contracting certifications. And so there are 4 different certifications that SBA provides to help with government contracting on the federal side. And the way they do this is that they provide what we call set-aside contracts. And when they say set-aside, what that means is that only those firms that hold the certification can bid on a particular contract. So the first one is woman-owned small business. So if a government procurement officer decides to advertise a contract as a woman-owned small business set-aside, that means only those businesses or firms that hold that woman-owned certification can bid on that. So what does that do? It reduces competition, number one. And so that takes large businesses out of the picture, and it takes, and then only those small businesses that are woman-owned can bid. And the same thing goes for the small disadvantaged businesses. This would be our 8A program, hub zones, in the service disabled veteran-owned small businesses. So you see the 5% below the woman-owned, 5% small disadvantaged businesses, 3% for hub zone businesses, and 3% for small businesses. That is the goal that the government has as far as the total dollars or percentage of dollars that are going to go to each of these groups, okay? And so, you know, woman-owned small business, they have a goal to make 5% of all that of their contracts from a dollar standpoint to the woman-owned small businesses. So again, it reduces competition and it makes it easier to get those funds into the hands of small businesses. So now if you're in the audience and you're saying, well, wait a minute, you know, I'm not a woman-owned small business, I don't qualify as a small disadvantaged business, I don't meet any of this. So am I out of luck? Well, you're not out of luck, because there's also a goal to spend 23% of those federal dollars with small businesses on a whole. Okay, so you still have that going for you, and that's huge. So anytime it's advertised as small business, that award can only be made to those small businesses. It cannot go to large businesses. And so what is a small business, you may ask? And a small business is basically defined by its NAICS code. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, I think, later on. That stands for North American Industry Classification System. Every industry has a different code. And then SBA has a definition of what that would be, what that definition of small business would be for that particular NAICS code or that particular industry, okay? And it may be based on your average annual 3 years of gross revenue, or it may be based on the number of employees. If you're a manufacturer, typically it's going to be the number of employees. Retail and construction is based on gross revenue. So SBA has a system or a tool that you can use to actually make sure that you meet that definition. Okay, so just wanted to make that point. And so let's go ahead and we'll start talking about the various certifications. Okay, the first one we're going to talk about is the 8A Business Development Program and its objectives. And I really like to say it's a two-pronged approach. Now I have three kind of bullet points here. But the first thing that it does is it provides management and technical assistance to help companies compete for business opportunities. In other words, it gives those businesses technical assistance to help grow their business. Okay, so on one hand, on one prong, you're getting this support, and then on the next hand, or the other prong, you're getting help in obtaining government contracts. And that help comes in the form of not only set-asides for government contracts, but also for sole source government contracting. And so the whole idea behind this is to help those small businesses get contracts, obtain technical assistance, and grow the business, and thrive in the business. And so the next point says assist and graduate firms to allow them to thrive competitively. And what that means is that it is a one-time opportunity to come into the 8A program and get this help, grow your business, and then you're going to graduate out of the program after 9 years. Okay, so the whole idea is come in, you get the help, you get what you need, you grow. And in growing, you also do not depend on, especially on the back end of that program, you start working on other non-8A contracts. So, we don't want you to go through and obtain these set-aside programs and sole source contracts and then graduate and then shrivel up, right? If you don't have that available anymore. So you've got to diversify to some degree. And so you diversify and growing your business. It's never a good idea to have all your eggs in one basket in any way. So that is the gist of the 8A program.
Is there an income cap there, William?
Yeah, we'll talk. It is for socially and economically disadvantaged firms. So there are some limitations on that, and we'll talk about that here in the next couple of slides. But that is a good question. So I get calls all the time from people that they want to become 8A certified, and I'm in the process of opening my business, and I want to get my 8A certification. Well, there are a couple of problems there. Number one, there is a requirement that you be in business for 2 full years before you can qualify for that. But you need to be ready to do government contracting. Again, this is a one-time offer for 9 years. And if you come into the program and you're not ready, you're wasting time, very valuable time. 9 years, it may sound like a long time, but it is not very long. And so if you come in and you have to learn how to do government contracting, you're wasting your time, okay? You're wasting that 8A time. So that is a very important factor. You need to make sure you have the capacity to deliver on federal contracts. You need to make sure you have adequate cash flow. You need to make sure that you have adequate capital. You have to have the demonstrated past performance. You're not going to be awarded a government contract if you have not been able to show and demonstrate that you were able to be successful. And so then open to advice on growing your business. Again, this comes with technical assistance. You have to be open and agreeable to take advice to grow your business. So that's a very important point. Most of the time, I do see those people that want that 8A certification, but they honestly just are not ready. They need to grow their business more. They need to get more experience. Now, occasionally, and most recently, I had somebody that came and they're maybe the other end of the spectrum. They have done all of this. They have the ability to perform. They have the financial resources, but they're looking down the line. They want to make sure that they get the absolute most out of the 8A certification that they can. So they're actually looking for, a segue, if you will, to right into a contract off the bat for 8A. So it can work both ways. I don't see that often, and I thought that was really interesting. So let's talk about the designated group. So 8A is for socially and economically disadvantaged firms. And so what does that mean? So the designated groups who are presumed to be socially disadvantaged are Black Americans, Asian Pacific Americans, Hispanic Americans, Native Americans, subcontinent Asian American. So if you fall into one of those categories or one of those groups, then you are presumed to be socially disadvantaged, okay? And so one of the questions I get asked a lot, well, what about a woman-owned small business? They're not socially disadvantaged, even though we have the woman-owned small business program. A woman can't qualify for an 8A certification. And the answer is yes, that they can. It takes a little bit more documentation to show that. So you can do this on non-designated group criteria, and you have to be able to show a preponderance of evidence that you have been socially disadvantaged. And this can be based on race, ethnicity, gender, physical handicap, long-term environmental issues. We have had a blind woman that was in the program, and she did it based on her disability. We have had other women that have been in the program, and they did it based on their gender. Okay, so it can be done on other things. If you have been again, if you have been are able to show that disadvantage, document that social disadvantage, then that you can use that. Okay, so that is a key point. That. Now, Ruth, you were asking, so you were asking about the financial economic disadvantage is really what you were asking about. And so it does come with some restrictions on your personal net worth. And this would be assets minus liabilities, have to be less than $250,000. Your 3-year average income has to be $250,000 or less. And then the fair market value of all assets is $4 million or less. And as you can see, you don't have to be living in poverty to qualify for economic disadvantage. Okay, so and these it also excludes things like your personal residence, retirement accounts, and those type of things are excluded as well. So that is usually not an issue for the most part. So again, so you have to be socially disadvantaged and economically disadvantaged. Okay, so let's move in right along. Let's talk about the application process. And so before and we could spend a lot of time on this, but before you start your application, you do need to register for a DUNS number. And so you register for that online. There is I need to make very clear on this, there is no fee for you to register for a DUNS number. You also need to identify your NAICS code. Again, remember what I was talking about, that is what is used to determine what your small business definition is. And then you also need to register with SAM.gov. SAM stands for the System for Award Management. And you have to do any government contracting, you have to register in SAM. And again, be sure that you go to SAM.gov. Make sure that you do not go to another site. If you get somewhere and they start asking you for your credit card, then you need to get out of that site. You're in the wrong place. You do not need to pay to get either your DUNS number or your get registered in SAM. Okay, so very important there. There are links on our website that will take you directly to DUNS as well as SAM.gov. So that's important too. Now you're ready to apply for the certification. You do need to review the application guide. It is highly recommended that you gather all the supporting documentation that you're going to need before you apply, and then you actually apply online at certified.sba.gov. Okay. This is a formal application process, and it will take you several months to go through the application process. It is reviewed. They're reviewed in Washington. That's where the SBA staff is. And so they will be reviewed there. The odds are that, when you submit it, they're going to come back to you and they're going to have questions and they're going to ask for additional information. And you're going to submit that, and then they're going to come back to you again. and they're going to ask you some more questions and ask for some more information, but you just have to persevere, understand that it's a process, and that it is worthwhile to go through that process to get your 8A certifications. So resources that are available, again, the best place to go is Certify. There are tutorials there. You can also go to SBA.gov. We have a lot of information about 8A and government contracting in general there as well. So it's a, you know, a fairly straightforward process as far as the application goes. There are no, there's no paper application anymore. Everything is done online. You do have to upload documents. You know, you're going to have to upload tax returns and various other documents for the application, but everything is done online. It's all virtual.
Also, one quick question, William, that's in our chat box, and y'all please feel free to put your questions in your chat box, in Q&A box or the chat line. We have a question. Qualifying for this 8A or disadvantage qualification, does that preclude persons from participating in other programs?
You know, good question. And, you know, I meant to talk about that on the very first slide, right? So no, you can have every certification. So let's say you're a woman-owned small business and you can get your certification for woman-owned small business, right? Okay, so you got that. Let's say you meet all the criteria for 8A, and so you get your 8A certification. And then let's say your business, and we're going to talk about this in a second, but you live in your office and your employees are located in a hub zone. And so you qualify for the hub zone certification. You can have that as well. And then you're a service disabled veteran. Bam, you get all 4 certifications. And so that opens it, that gives you a very good competitive advantage because you would be eligible to bid on all of those set aside contracts. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I did mean to mention that in that first slide. So yeah, the easiest, you know, 8A is probably the most difficult. Okay, I'll just say that up front. You know, there's some others that are easier. The woman-owned small business that we'll talk about. It's gone to a formal application process now. Hub Zone is a formal application process. And then the service disabled veteran-owned small business is what we call a self-certification. That's the only one of those we have left at this point. And you simply go on, and we'll talk about that again if that's coming up. But you simply go on through SAM and register for that. So good, very good question, very good point. And so what does 8A do for you though? So you do have the real competitive advantage for 8A is that it provides the opportunity for sole source contracting. And what that means is sole source means that procurement officer can come directly to you as the business owner and negotiate one-on-one a contract. It does not have to be put out for bid and competition. And so that's huge, right? So you don't have to compete with others as long as your price is fair and determined to be fair and reasonable. And so that is why everybody is interested in 8A certifications because of that sole source component. Now, it also comes with set-asides. And as I mentioned, you also get technical assistance. So when you come into the program, you would get orientation, go through all the ins and outs of 8A and how it can benefit you. You get assistance with marketing. There are programs that help market 8A businesses. We also have referrals and trainings. We have what we call a 7J training program where the government or SBA actually contracts training for 8A firms. And then you also get increased contract value for eligibility on surety bonds. And that can, for construction companies, that can be a big deal as well. So you can see that 8A, it can be very valuable. It is, just to sum it up, it can be very valuable. It is a one-time offer. You cannot do it again, and it is only for 9 years. So you need to be ready to do government contracting before you make that application, because if you don't, you'll waste your time and you cannot come back. So very important there. So that's 8A. Again, trying to, in a nutshell, hub zone certification. This is a locational based certification. And so the real primary purpose of this is for the government to spend their contracting dollars on areas that are in distress. Okay, so economically distressed communities are determined to be hub zone, and hub zone stands for historically underutilized business zone. And so these are areas of economic distress. If the business is located, if the office is located in that hub zone and 35% of its employees are in the hub zone, then those are the two primary eligibility criteria for that. And so again, the government spends those contracting dollars in these hub zones. It helps stimulate the economy in these areas. It helps build capacity and grow the business that's in that distressed community. And it gives these businesses access to set aside contracting dollars. Makes a lot of sense. It's really a good program. And so your question is, where are these hub zones? And so when I was putting this together, I just did a screenshot, and you can go online to look up the hub zone areas. You can actually punch in your address and it will tell you whether you're in a hub zone or not. And so I just punched in Charleston, and this gives a really good description or shows how these hub zones are broken down. And so if you look, this is, Charleston, Peninsula Charleston, for the most part, is in a hub zone, and it goes up the corridor of I-26. And so these are census tracts, and these hub zones were determined by census tracts. Now, if I'm a business in this hub zone, and I have my primary office is in the hub zone, the challenge for me is going to be able to get 35% of my employees that will live in a hub zone, right? This is honestly, it's a really restricted area. So if you have employees that are up in Somerville or, West Ashley, Mount Pleasant, they're going to hurt you. And that's one of the major challenges for maintaining your hub zone certification is to be able to maintain that 35% of your employees live in a hub zone. But now there are other areas. Let's look, we'll go to the south. And if you see this red area, that is Colleton County. And so the whole county has been determined to be a hub zone. And so if you're in a county that's a hub zone and your business is there, odds are most of your employees, or at least 35% of your employees, are probably going to live in the county in which your business is located. And so that makes it a little bit easier, when you're looking at those situations. And then the other thing I just want to call your attention to is if you look up in the right-hand corner, you'll see the kind of X'd out area. That is called a redesignated area. And what that means is that designation for the hub zone is going to expire. And so if you were trying to get your hub zone certification, and especially if you were going to move an office into a hub zone, and people do that. I mean, they strategize to get this, and they'll move their office into a hub zone so that they can qualify. But you wouldn't want to go to that area because it's getting ready to expire. Okay, so this screenshot shows a lot of information here that is helpful, I think, to explain how this works. But it is interesting. You go right up I-26, and I'm pretty sure my office is over on Ashley Phosphate, and I'm pretty sure I'm in the hub zone here. But so it is locational based. So how do you go about applying for this? There is what we call a hub zone primer that gives you all the information on the hub zone. You do have to have a DUNS number. I'm going to be repetitive on these DUNS numbers, NAICS codes, and SAMs. It's required for every certification. Okay, so everything is going to require a DUNS number, a NAICS code. You've got to be registered in SAM.
And William,
Yes,
I'm also dropping the links in the chat if anyone needs those. You can access them there.
thank you. And so you can apply. Basically, you will need to complete and review the application guide. Again, gather your supporting documentation. It's much better to get that on the front end versus trying to submit it after you have completed your application. And now this one is a little bit different. It's still using the what we call the general login system through SBA, and that's on the SBA webpage. And so what you would do is you would submit that application, and then they will email you and request additional documentation. They'll shoot you an email to tell you what documents, or to tell you to go ahead and send them the documents. And so verify, the requested information, excuse me, submit supporting documentation, update SAM, your SAM profile once you're approved. All right, getting the most out of it. Okay, you will qualify for set-aside contracts. Now, this slide does say sole source contracts, but we don't ever see hub zone contracts or hub zones advertised as sole source. I'll just be honest there. It does give you the opportunity to build capacity and grow by establishing joint ventures and participating in the All Small Mentor Protege program. It allows you to access training, management, and technical assistance programs, guaranteed loans, and bonding assistance. So it does come with some perks there. The biggest thing, though, for this one is going to be those set-aside contracts. All right, let's talk about the woman-owned small business. Moving right along, I think we're pretty good on time. This is one that recently changed. It was like a hybrid as far as a self-certification, but last December, it went to a full-blown application process. So there have been some changes there. So this one is, you actually do have to go through and apply online, and it is a formal application. But this one you can take advantage of annual prime contracting goals, again, set-asides. It is intended to help woman-owned small businesses build capacity and grow. Gives you access to set-asides for woman-owned small business and economically disadvantaged woman small business. Now, there are about 100, and I want to say it's about 130 NAICS codes that have been identified as underutilized industries by women. And those are the industries that the federal government uses for the WOSB certifications. And so it is important. You can go and look those NAICS codes up. Again, you need to know what your NAICS code is. And there's actually a list of those industries that qualify for the woman-owned small business. So in addition to that, the woman has to own 51% ownership requirements. And I'll talk about that here. Too many times I've been in a room with a business owner and they're looking at obtaining government contracts, and they see the WSB certification, and he says, "Oh, well, fine. I'm just gonna transfer my ownership to my wife, and then we can get the WSB certification." Well, knowing good and well, his wife doesn't know anything about the business. She doesn't handle day-to-day operations of the business, and therefore she is not eligible, and the business would not be eligible, because the woman has to have 51% ownership. She has to be the highest officer position. Of course, you have to have the proper NAICS codes, as I mentioned. She has to have managerial experience, manage daily operations, and then this does not require any minimum time in business. Neither does Hub Zone. As I mentioned, 8A, you do have to be in business for 2 full years before you can meet the eligibility requirement for that. And so, but I just want to make sure that's clear. You cannot do that. It is intended for women who actually own, run, and manage the business. Okay, so the economically disadvantaged requirements basically open, if you're found to be an economically disadvantaged woman-owned small business, it adds additional NAICS codes to the list that you can qualify for. So you do have to have a personal net worth of less than 750,000, 3-year average income of 350,000 or less. You have to have a fair market value of all assets of 6 million or less. So again, definitely not in poverty to meet this this requirement. Now the application process, and I'm not going to read through all of this, but I want you to have the gist of how this works. You know, the firm is going to register in SAM. You're going to register in betacertify.sba.gov. And some of this says beta certify, some of it says certify, but it is one and the same. Certify basically was upgraded into beta certify. So it is one and the same. I don't want to confuse anybody there. And then the firm completes the application process. You know, you upload all your documents through beta certify. Once that's done, it's screened. If you have done everything you need to do, it's going to proceed. If it's missing things, then they're going to reject the application. It's going to be sent back to you to resubmit. Once it's past screening, it goes to an analyst for eligibility review. And once it's found to meet all the requirements, it is recommended for approval, and then the decision is made for award of the WSB certification. So that's kind of the process. And again, all of this is done. It's not done here locally. It's not done in Columbia. It's done in headquarters in Washington. Okay, the service disabled veteran-owned small business, and this is the easiest one. If you're a service disabled veteran, you know, this is really pretty easy, pretty simple to get this certification. You do have to meet all the eligibility requirements, but you would qualify for set-aside opportunities. Of course, that's going to help you build capacity and grow. And you do have the ability to form and establish joint ventures. So what are the requirements? That service disabled veteran-owned small business has to have 51% ownership. Again, highest officer. You have to have your proper NAICS codes. You do have to have managerial experience. You have to manage daily operations. You know, unfortunately, there have been situations, and I just say this with a word of warning, word of caution. There have been situations where a business or somebody may try to put a service disabled veteran as a figurehead to get around things, but that is illegal. And they do make silver bracelets that they will put on you if you do those types of unethical activities. So just a word of warning there. So, but if you're a service disabled veteran, again, there is not a formal application process that you have to go through. So it's really quick and easy. You do it all through the system, through SAM, System for Award Management. All right, so it does enable firms to qualify for set-aside funding. You know, they throw this sole source contract awards on all of these, but it just doesn't happen. Really, the only time sole source awards are made that I see is through 8A. But there are set-asides, though, that are still very, very beneficial, very valuable. It does facilitate development opportunities and increases growth potential by establishing joint ventures or mentor-protege agreements. More prime and subcontracting opportunities are available through registration at VetBiz. One other thing I would mention, and this has been kind of talked about for several years, the VA or Veterans Administration also has contracting programs, and I think at some point we're not there yet, but at some point that those VA programs are going to fall under the umbrella of SBA. So at this point, SBA only manages the service disabled veteran-owned programs. And so if you have any interest, if you're a veteran and you're not disabled, I would encourage you to go to the VA website and check that out as well. That could be an opportunity.
William?
Yes.
We've actually got a couple of questions about that program. Brian, I don't know if you want to read those out to the
Yeah,
room.
so the VA does different percentage levels of disability, and we have someone who's wondering, is that program specifically for people with 100% disability, or is that open to people with potentially lower
Yeah,
levels of disability?
yeah, you do not have to be 100% disabled. Yeah, that is not a problem. Any other questions?
Yes, there was another question about where can they go to find SBA contracts or contracts set asides? Any particular websites?
Yeah, I tell you, the best place to start is going to be to go to sba.gov, and there is a heading there, contracting, and that would be the best place to start. There are some other sites that you can go to, but that would be a good place to start. BetaSam is another one that you can go to at this point as well. But start with SBA. That's the best way to do it. There's some tutorials there that can help you with that. And then we also do other workshops from time to time on how to find government contracts as well. And so that's a good place to lead into this next slide in our district office. And so I'm the senior, as I mentioned earlier, I'm the senior area manager. My office is here in North Charleston. I'm kind of a jack of all trades, you know, so I do some government contracting. I'm involved in our lending programs. Last year and a half, I've been up to my eyeballs in COVID-19 programs. But we do have staff in Columbia that specialize in government contracting. Their titles are business opportunity specialists. And so they are there and they can go even in more depth, and they will do some workshops on a regular basis too about, you know, higher level and how to find those government contracts and how to find where the government is spending money so that you can target that. The other thing we do is pre-COVID anyway, is that we do networking, and it's usually during National Small Business Week, which typically is in May, but now they're doing it this year, actually this week. But we do a really big contracting event, which is a good way to come out and meet with all the contracting officers, bring your capability statement, be able to sit down for 5 or 10 minutes and go through that with them so that you can make contacts. You know, honestly, it's all about marketing. It's all about creating those relationships. And, you know, even if you've got an 8A certification, the government is not going to come knocking on your door offering you a contract. You've got to go and earn that. And so, you know, you've got to market it and go to those kind of events. The city of Charleston does events or similar events to that. And you need to take advantage of everything you can do. If you know any other businesses that are doing government contracting, and we've got a couple of more events in the next 2 weeks, you know, I think they'll probably maybe talk more about what you can do to help obtain contracts.
So there's a question from Mrs. Bennett. Do all businesses have to become certified to qualify for contracts? Or once I become certified, will I be able to qualify for any and all contracts?
So the answer is no.
Top zone or SBA or 8A?
Yeah, so the answer is no. As long as you're a small business and you register in System for Award Management, SAM, you are ready to start bidding on contracts. Now, if that contract is advertised as a set aside, let's say it's advertised as a woman-owned small business set aside, and you do not have that certification, then that prohibits you from bidding on that specific contract. Okay, so if only if you have the certification for the program, can you advertise or can you bid on a set aside for the program? So, you know, if you have a woman-owned small business, you can't bid on 8A. If you have 8A, but you don't have woman-owned small business, you can't bid on that, and vice versa.
So it pays to have multiple certifications then?
if you can qualify, it is best to get as many as you can.
Okay.
So let me, I think I may be at my bonus slide.
Yes, that's where we've been waiting on the bonus slide.
So a couple of, all right, this is just links here, driving you back to our websites. Again, there's a tremendous amount of information there, tutorials. You can also reach out to me. That's not a problem either. I'll be more than happy after tonight. Give me a call, shoot me an email. I'll be happy to talk to you as well. You know, any other questions on government contracting. If you stump me, then we will definitely call our staff in Columbia and get them involved and get an answer for you. But I did want to, I couldn't pass up this opportunity. This is still very important. This is still taking a tremendous amount of SBA's time, and that is the COVID-19 relief options. And so Ruth, in the beginning, Ruth was asking if you had ever worked with SBA. And so if you've ever gotten a PPP loan, if you've ever gotten an EIDL loan, you have worked with SBA, okay? So at this point, I find it hard to believe that there are many businesses out there, many small businesses out there that have not received some of those benefits. And if you haven't, it's very important for you to listen to me right now, because we still have programs available. We still have money available for these particular programs. So to start off with, we have the economic injury disaster loan. And so there have been some changes that have been made on that here in the last couple of weeks. And that loan has now been, the maximum amount of that loan has now gone to $2 million. Okay, so loan has gone up, maximum amount, $2 million. The loan amount is calculated by your annual revenue, your gross revenue, less costs of goods sold times 2, and that would be based on your 2019 tax return. So that is how your loan amount is arrived. Some other changes that have come about are that your loan payments on that EIDL loan, if you have an EIDL loan, you will not have payments due for 24 months, okay? And so that's a big benefit. They also have opened up the uses of funds a little bit, and they now will allow you to use those EIDL funds to prepay any debt that you have. And this gets to be a little bit of a gray area, and nobody's really answered this question yet. And what's the difference between prepaying a debt and refinancing a debt? So nobody has answered that, by the way. But if you prepay, let's say you pay your loan ahead, that is certainly an authorized let's see. So the other thing I really want to make point on an EIDL loan is that program is available until December 31st. And that doesn't mean that you have to apply by December 31st. It means that you have to actually have your loan approved by December 31st. All right. So that's an important date to know. The Paycheck Protection Program, of course, it is closed. Those loans are no longer being made. But if you received a PPP loan, it is very important that you follow through with your bank on getting that loan forgiven. It's a very easy process at this point. No real excuse. Don't delay. Don't put it off. Don't procrastinate. You know, go ahead and get that loan forgiven and get that loan off your books. You don't need to be carrying that debt, because until it's forgiven, it's a loan and it's a liability against you. Now, the other one is the targeted EIDL advance. That program is still open and there's still money available there. And so that is, they call it an advance, but it is actually a grant, okay? And so what would happen is that you would apply for the EIDL loan. You would get an invitation to apply for the advance if your business is in a low income area, okay? So you would get an invitation, and then as long as you had less than 300 employees and you were able to show a 30% reduction in revenue from during an 8-week period starting March 2nd of 2020, 8-week period in the future. I know that, and I'm probably not explaining this the best, but March of 2020 versus March of 2021, say March and April of 20 versus March and April of 2021. If you had a 30% reduction in revenue, you may qualify for a $10,000 grant for your business. Okay, so that's still available. And a lot of people have gotten that. Now, it does have to be, your business has to be in a low income area. You can go on the SBA website and again, punch in your address and it will tell you whether you're in that area or not. And then we also have the supplemental targeted advance, and it's the criteria or eligibility is the same as the targeted EIDL, with the exception that you have to be able to show a 50% reduction in revenue, and you can only have you must have less than 10 employees. Yeah.
Maybe you're fading out just a little, but we do have a couple questions concerning past PPP and other
Okay.
loans. There was a question that came that if you've had a PPP or an EIDL loan prior to this, can you still apply for additional funding?
So PPP is gone. You can't apply for PPP anymore. The only thing
What
you can
about the
get,
EIDL targeted?
yeah. So if you applied for an EIDL loan, you can request an increase. Okay, so they've changed the calculations from the way they were calculated earlier, and you should have gotten an invitation to apply to increase your loan. But if not, you can increase your loan. Probably the easiest thing for you to do would be to give me a call tomorrow. Call me or email me, and then I can send you the link to the email address and the specific information that you would need to submit.
Okay. And so a question about HUD zone certification qualifies for businesses that operate from their home offices. So
Yeah,
if their business is home-based, can they still qualify for a HUD zone certification?
Hub zone, yes. Yes.
Okay, very good. Christina, any other quick questions?
Sure. We have someone, they renewed their registration on SAM last month, filled out the details for the SBA registration, but now their SAM registration is showing them as DOT certified DBE. Is that all they need to apply, or is there another step?
And they're trying to apply for.
They didn't.
So if
specify.
they're certified as a disadvantaged business enterprise with the Department of Transportation, does the SBA and the federal government honor that, or do they still need to apply for those programs with the SBA?
Yeah, they would still need to apply for the various other certifications. That's a good question. So if they applied through the state, if they were interested in applying for 8A, they would still need to apply for 8A. And I would encourage them to do so, as a matter of fact, yeah.
Any other questions, Christina?
Yep. What are
Brian?
the required documents for the targeted EIDL advanced loan to be qualified? Could you repeat those again?
So what the targeted advance, to be eligible for that, number one, you apply for the EIDL loan, you get an invitation to request the targeted advance. And so the targeted advance, you have to be in a low income community, you have to have less than 300 employees, and you have to be able to show a 30% reduction during an 8-week period for 2020 versus 2021. Starting the beginning date of that is March 2nd of 2020. So any 8-week period going forward.
And William, can you provide your contact number? You ask someone to give you a call tomorrow. And so here it is.
There you go. I think that's my last slide.
Mm-hmm.
And so here it is, William Furman, Senior Area Manager, 843-225-7430. And he has a very easy email, william.furman@sba.gov. Any other questions before we make this final announcement for tonight for this Our Power webinar series, part 2?
So William, William, are there any other places other than SAM where contracts are posted where these set-asides are?
Yeah, that right now so the government has gone through some changes over the last year, phasing out some websites, but right now, Beta SAM, I think, is the best bet to go.
Okay.
All right, any other questions, Christina, before? Good. Well, again, we want to thank William Furman for such powerful information on federal contracting one-on-one. This is part of a 4-part series, and understand that at the end of our 4th webinar, those who will participate in 3 of the 4 will receive a beautiful certification certificate that said that you have attended How to Win the Contract. On next Wednesday, September the 22nd, it will be Understanding the Scope and Winning the Contract. Same time, same location. And then on September the 29th, you got the contract, now what? About contract compliance. And then following our September series in October, we're going to have a series called Are You Ready to Borrow? That's going to be Wednesday, October 13th. And that's going to be a lunch and learn. And you don't want to miss that one. Are you ready to borrow? So again, we want to thank each of you all for attending part 2 of How to Win the Contract. We hope that the information has been very helpful, and we look forward to next Wednesday, same time, same location. Again, thank you, Ruth Jordan from the City of Charleston's Office of Women Minority Owned Businesses. If you have any further questions, feel free to email us or give us a call, and our contact information is on the screen. So again, thank you for attending Federal Contracting 101. And again, William, thank you for a job well done. Good night.
Absolutely. Thank you.